Black women from around the world on Girl Chick's Liberation Line. I was like, I'm going to say that. It sounds like a radio show. You are walking and talking with Black women from around the world on the Liberation Line. It reminds me of Don Cheadle. Remember when Don Cheadle was in that movie? When he was the radio DJ?
I do.
Yeah.
When Martin Luther King got assassinated, I remember.
Yes.
I remember.
And today is Saturday, August 31st, and it's today, August 31st, is also the anniversary of when in 1962, Franny Lou Hamer and 17 freedom fighters boarded that bus to Indianola and got off that bus and were brutally beaten. And then she talked about it specifically when she sat down at the D&D. She said, because it was on August 31st, 1962, when we were just trying to register to vote, which is the anniversary of today. So yeah, so many things are happening. Today is also International Day of African People Descent Day. So around the world, there's a global diaspora movement where people have always taken August 31st and they have recognized it as a powerful day for them. And then, of course, this is all happening over Labor Day weekend, which has had a new modern meaning for lots of people in this country. And for Girl Trek has always been a weekend where we have honored the labor of Black women and gone in protest through radical self-care. We usually host a stress protest over Labor Day weekend. We're having this liberation line today. We have some beautiful stuff planned for the rest of the year, but it's just a lot happening. And the energy of this time is inviting us all individually and personally to a moment of transformation. It's not happenstance. We talked about this last week. It's not happenstance of what has happened over these last couple of weeks in terms of history.
And at 9 a.m. in the morning on the East Coast, there's a siren behind you. And I'm just thinking, all of this, it's real. And what I'm saying is all of this, if you think about the toll, all of this has taken on Black bodies, and particularly female Black bodies, from Fannie Lou Hamer's body being assaulted in the jail cell to her body already being just wrecked with injustice from, all of the forced procedures she had when she went into the gynecology, to laboring in the field from a child, to then being beaten to try to vote. I'm just saying the toll of injustice on Black bodies is not something poetic. It is actual. It is actual. And so our issue
Can I uplift right now, actually, Morgan, what you just said? Can I uplift Breonna Taylor's boyfriend? Because this week, as they were laying in the bed, we know what happened. And this week, 2 of the police officers, the courts ruled like they're not going to pursue charges. And they said they're not pursuing charges because it's the boyfriend's fault. So they put the whole thing on the boyfriend. And I was just, it kind of brings tears to my eyes thinking about it, because I was thinking about him all week. And I was just like, who's holding space for this Black brother? I hope somebody is. I hope that he is able to not hold that pain, not hold any shame, not hold any blame. I'm thinking about all of the Black men who just want to love on their babies, who want to love on their women, who want to love on their families, and who are not giving the right. And that Breonna and her boyfriend were not given the right. And so, fuck them. That's what I want to say.
Thank you for that. No, thank you for that. If you are new to Girl Trek, we are a million Black women who walk, talk, and solve problems together. And 10 weeks leading up to the most historic election of our lifetime, we are talking about 10 issues that face and confront us in regards to health justice. We walked in solidarity on the ground in Minneapolis with George Floyd's family in week 1. And in week 2, we talked about the impact of mass incarceration in the prison system with our sister Fox Rush. And this week we have a special, with my best friend.
She is our best friend. That's all I'm trying to say.
She is. That's my dyslexia and the devil. That ain't nothing else. That's what I'm saying. That's my homegirl. But is with Fox Rich. And this week, oh my God, one of the most legendary organizers of our generation, one of the most brightest spirits and faces and movements and humans and stories, Tarana Burke is joining us today. And before we start with that empowering conversation, I want to make sure that we start with getting present, especially me. It's girl. I got that text message from Girl Check at 5:01 a.m. So I'm sorry to all the West Coast people who be getting them text messages at 5:01. We're trying to do what's best for the movement. I'm just like you. So we got to listen. Sometimes we got to take one for the movement. But I was like, Lord, I'm in California. I just, some of you read, I just buried my cousin Tina, and I'm here with my family, and it's been a hard week, and I'm so grateful for this walk in particular, in this timing, in this community, and this crew of women who walk. So thank you for all of the messages. I really do appreciate it, and I really do want to ground before we have this conversation today. And I was thinking, dear God, let the words of my mouth, meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. Oh Lord, my strength and my redeemer is something that I just want to say today, and just bring God's grace and guidance into this call. And I was thinking about what the issue was for today that we were talking about. And I was like, I know we're going to talk about voting. I know we're going to talk about civic engagement. I know we're going to talk about agenda setting and using your own powerful story to set a unique agenda that serves you, your family, your people, your community. I understand all of those issues. And I was like, what is the root cause of those issues? And how do we embody the solution to the root cause? And I was like, I don't know what the root cause is, why people just be like, I ain't voting. I don't care. I don't. And I was like, is it apathy? Is it overwhelm? Is it weariness? Is it exhaustion? Is it shame? Is it blame of what people ain't doing, what the candidates ain't doing? What is it that we don't want to show up for ourselves? And so I've just been thinking a lot about that. And I was like, sometimes those things come from, what people call worth wounds, like where it doesn't feel worth it. And worth wounds come from so many different things, from violence, from seeing violence, from hearing stories of violence, to just thinking it ain't worth it no more, to actual wounds in your actual body of assault, to wounds in your actual body of abandonment. And there's so many of those things of like, it's just not worth it to participate. It's just not worth it to hope anymore. It's just not worth it. And I just pray. I don't know. There ain't no meditation in the world that's going to heal that. There is only the collective power of love. And my Bible says that God is love, right? And so it is only the collective power of Black women and people around the world who are united under the cause of eliminating suffering and under the cause of uplifting everything that is neighborly and loving. And so I was thinking about that, and I was like, as we begin to breathe together, many of you are out walking. Hopefully more and more of you are out walking during these calls. I know Vanessa and I are, and we are thinking about how we move our bodies so that we can start to energize our bodies. And as you are walking, and if you are not walking, if you could just plant your feet somewhere in your living room, in your office, wherever you are today, in the ground, in your yard, in your garden, just plant your feet. And for those of you who are walking, as you start to walk, pay attention to everything around you. Pay attention to your hands. Are they clenched or are they unfurled? Waiting to receive all that the day comes and brings with it. It is a new day, you all. It is a new day, everybody. I would like to catch my breath today. I invite you to do the same as we take a collective inhale. I need y'all to breathe with me this week. My breath is short. I would love for you to breathe with me. Collective inhale and exhale. One more collective inhale. Let your body rise with the inhale. Let your body fall, unfurl, open up with the exhale. And then I want you to breathe on your own. Just natural inhales and exhales. With your inhale, you are inhaling dignity and peace and prosperity and abundance. And with the exhale, you are letting go of shame, of blame, of anything that might hold you back. On the next inhale, you are thinking of the sun above you in all of its radiance. You need to exhale. On your next inhale, you are inhaling the light of the sun. Ooh, and the warmth is burning away anything that is not love. It is falling on your exhale. Shame, blame, pain, memories. On the next inhale, the sun is above your head and it is radiant and it is coming on your forehead, into your eyes, into your face, into your neck, your throat chakra, your chest, opening up your solar plexus, hovering there in your gut, right above your navel. The sun just beaming, circular, rotating yellow light, sunlight in your belly, in your gut, right above your navel, right there where your worth is, where your power is. Right there, the sun is just revolving inside you, melting away anything that is not love. It is just flicking it out like in the dryer. That sun is just turning around, that ball, that orb is just turning around. Anything that's not love is just falling by the wayside as you walk, as you stand tall. I thought I would end with a prayer with Dr. Maya Angelou. She said this prayer at the United Nations to engage the citizens of the world, and I thought it was so perfect to hear some sunshine from one of our ancestors. This poem, which was posited as a prayer on the UN stage, is called A Brave and Startling Truth. Here's an excerpt. When we come to it, we, this people, on this minuscule and kithless globe, who reach daily for the balm, the blade, the dagger, yet whose petition in the dark for tokens of peace, we, this people, on this mote of matter, in whose mouths abide cankerous words which challenge our very existence, yet out of those same mouths come songs of reach in such exquisite sweetness that the heart falters in labor and the body is quieted into awe. We, this people, on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling, life is sapped from the living, yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness that the haughty neck is happy to bow and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines. When we come to it, we, this people, on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear. When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world. That is when, and only when, we come to it. So grateful for Dr. Angelou's words, so grateful for this call today. Vanessa, are you there, my friend?
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for that grounding. Just letting the air breathe. Just letting the air breathe. We get to welcome in our guest right now, and I was feeling nervous on this, preparing for this, even though Morgan and I know Tarana and have had the pleasure to get to know her in the way that we have had the pleasure to get to know so many dynamic women. Morgan, I don't know, I know you do know this, but over the last like 10, 12 years that we have been doing this work, like the the women we have been able to be in community with and be up close and personal with, there's just, I can't even start to think or name of them, but I'm thinking of Valerie, I'm thinking of Crystal, I'm thinking of Tulane, I'm thinking of many women whose names go unknown. And Tarana is just, since the moment I met her, has been just such an inspiration to me. She is a daughter of the Bronx, New York, stand up. She is a fellow Virgo. Many of you know her name because maybe you've seen her on the cover of Time magazine. Maybe you've seen her on the red carpets. Maybe you follow her now on Instagram. But just for those who do not know, she is a long-term organizer. I'm talking about a youth organizer. I'm talking about went to Alabama State and was organizing all throughout Alabama. I'm talking about was on the ground in Selma for years. I'm talking about had an entire rites of passage organization for girls for which her work was birthed out of. And sometimes all we hear is the flashy parts of a person's work. So I just want to say that as we bring her in, that for all of you women who are out there laboring in ways that people may not see, celebrate, or recognize, that you are also Tarana and that your work could ignite a movement. Morgan and I did think we did think we was going to get 1 million women walking, but I don't know if we understood the power of what it would mean once we got 1 million women walking. But we are also just 2 ordinary Black women. I know there's a siren going by me. I'm gonna let it honor it and go by. We're out here walking, y'all.
Can I say something while you're while that's going by? Can you mute it for 1 second? We were, Vanessa and I have the great privilege of working with some powerful leaders on our national team. We call them the C team. And we were working on our 10-year strategy the other day. And we were like, well, what is the intended impact of our work? It's still loud. He's never born. You were like, I think I'm safe. Let me come back. But we were thinking about what is the...
Y'all, if you live in these urban environments, it's called noise pollution, and it be keeping your nervous system up too.
It's true. It's true. It's like, yeah, but we don't need it on our relaxer calls, and that's the problem. We can't even find no respite. Can't even find no respite. But no, that's good. You're good, V. But we were working as a team, and we were trying to, we were charting out a 10-year vision of what the world looks like, and why is the world different? Because we exist as a movement. And the very first thing that we put on the top of the chart is that we have new leadership, that we have a pipeline of 1 million Black women who are leaders. They are civic leaders in their homes, they're civic leaders in their communities, and they are civic leaders of our country. Like the number of girl trekkers who have gone on to found movements, to found organizations, experiences, services, businesses that are health related is so powerful. I'm telling y'all, I could name 20 right here, and I know Vanessa can name another 20 of y'all who are doing big things, who quit your day job and was like, bet I'm about to go on the front lines. And some of you stayed in your day job and was like, I'm about to work this job to help make sure that Black women and Black families get to live. So that is the mission, is making sure that girls like Tarana, like Morgan, like Vanessa, grow up to change the world. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So thank you for joining us. Is Tarana on the line?
I'm here. I'm listening, and I'm so just, first of all, thank you for that level set and grounding this morning. You don't know what you need until you need it, so you get it sometimes. So thank you for that. I'm coming off of a 3-day work retreat and long days and late nights. So, I'm happy to be here and up early this morning, but I certainly appreciated that grounding to kind of level set. But I am here, and thank you for having me.
Tarana, thank you so much for being here. And honestly, I'm like, what's the work retreat? Tell us. Like, we need to understand, what is the work? I know not even, what is it? What was you doing? Like, this is the real deal. I know that you had a call, like, with the survivors, and maybe you could talk to people, like, what did you just come off of? Because we just came off of some work retreat planning stuff, too, and, like, that's the work.
Yeah, this is actually different. I have, as we all know, and most people listening, particularly Black women, always have many, many hats. So one of the other hats that I'm wearing is I'm a part of a collective called Lalabella. and it's on Instagram. It's named after, it's Lalabella, Baltimore, though. It's named after the churches. I don't know if people have ever heard of these original first Christian churches in Ethiopia that are built underground. If you look, they're beautiful.
Yes, they're gorgeous.
That are built. And anyway, we have a collective here called Lalabella, and we bought a building. We wanted a building. We bought a property that takes up a whole city block, and we're turning it into a cultural space. As we came out of the retreat, we're world building.
Yes.
This collective of, the names are incredible. Of powerful Black culture makers and creators and artists and activists, we got together because Baltimore, I'm from New York, but most people know New York is deeply gentrified. Even the Bronx is getting gentrified. Baltimore, which is one of the last bastions around the country of just pure Blackness. It is just so deliciously Black. And they have a big train coming through, speed rail that's coming through the DC. So there is a fear of the gentrification that is coming to Baltimore. And so trying to preserve and create intentionally Black spaces and keep them sacred for culture making, for healing, for sanctuary, for our folks is just important to me, to us, to our collective. And so we've been sitting for the last 3 days with some of the busiest people I know, including myself. We peel out this time to figure out how we're going to do this project. The building is purchased. We own it outright, no bank loans. Because, we're also trying to make models of what I like to call, I can't think of the name of this phrase, but a type of autonomy that we have, that we keep in our community as well, where we're not tethered to these institutions that have been historically part of our oppression and downfall. So it's an amazing undertaking, and it is always also like so grounding for me about like what's possible for our liberation when we work collectively. And all of these ways that we talk about Black people don't stick together and Black people don't do this. And I'm like, that's not been my real experience. We do. I mean, your Girl Trek is evidence, right? Like that always, especially for Black women, I'm like, there's no way I would be anywhere that I am without Black people, but certainly without Black women. And while there are instances that are traumatic and hurtful sometimes inside of institutions like our churches or our schools, whatever, by and large, we would not have made it through the things we've made it through if we didn't stick together, right? So anyway, that's what my last 3 days.
That's beautiful. You're gonna inspire somebody looking at a building right now when they walk in. They're like, ooh, exactly. They can see the name on it. They can see people coming in and out. You've inspired something. It's so beautiful. Yeah, like this built environment all the way back to all the way back to Ethiopia. This kind of built environment of liberation. We try to fold our liberation into our bed at night and just be like, okay, I'm gonna be liberated in this one body, but then we walk outside and it's just assault, from like traffic going by us or sirens, as Vanessa just heard, and we need to create places of peace in our community and places of reverence and safety in our community for our daughters and for everyone in our community. So thank you for that. Vanessa, I'm so grateful that you asked that question. And I also wanted to say, you were saying thank you for that moment. You don't know what you need. And it's funny, Tarana, when I think about you, I've seen you in passing so many times, like whether it was at a conference or it was backstage, I think at Omega, somewhere we were both speaking, I don't remember. But it's like one of those things where you be like, you just acknowledge that we're just trying to get through this. And it's like, hey, how you doing? And it's like, we have so many friends like that it's like, I think I know her because I've seen her 18 times. It's just like, we always be like, how you doing, girl? And I've seen you in passing so many times. And I know that you've seen us in passing so many times. And that's another reason that I feel like Black women, we're just tired. You understand what I mean? We're just tired sometimes because we are doing so much work. And so much, there's so many transitions in our lives and intersections in our lives that sometimes we have to just stand still.
Yeah, those moments.
Sometimes, yeah.
Reminded, I feel like the best of this was you when I met you at the Schomburg. It was the first time we met.
That is the first time we met. Yes.
When you took off your earrings.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Like that always, that's always the memory that pops in my mind for those listening, when I first met Vanessa, I forgot who it was that introduced us, but we were at the Schomburg, and a mutual friend introduced us, and she had on these amazing earrings, these like big, bold earrings. And I was like, those are fantastic. Like, I love jewelry and I love bold jewelry. And Vanessa took them out of her ears and was like, take them. You can have them. And it was such a beautiful and selfless and just gracious and generous act. And this is the ways that we like know our tribe. You know, it's something that folks who I'm around, something I would do, people who I'm around, who I'm close to would do. And it was just so wonderful and sweet and such a beautiful way to be introduced to a person. But I always think about that. I was like, that was Vanessa who took her earrings off. I was like, no, sis, take them. You love them, take them. I can get more.
Look, I feel grateful that I had something to give in that moment, because I'm telling you, one of the things I also know about myself and other Black women and have learned from this movement, we're overflowing with gratitude. And actually, sometimes we don't know where or how to place it. We don't even know where or how to express it. It runs so deep. We understand so deeply, so intrinsically, that by God's grace, that every single day we woke up. And so I can imagine that, like, in that moment, I was really like, thank you. Thank you for doing this work. You like these earrings? Like, have them. Like, I just was like, if I had something physical to thank somebody, I'm grateful. But there's so many times that I've just run across somebody and I have a deep well of gratitude for just like what our ancestors have done, what organizers are doing, what women, I feel it every time I see a Girl Trek woman in a blue shirt. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude when I see a woman in a blue shirt. I'm just like, thank you for believing in this movement. Thank you for putting your ducats down on that t-shirt. Thank you for being out here wearing it. Like, it just overwhelms me. And I feel like a lot of women feel that way. Like, it's just, I feel grateful to be alive, grateful to be in the fight, grateful for what's happening, and grateful to have comrades like you.
Well, I appreciate it. I think what y'all have done with Girl Trek is so fantastic. And it is, to me, an inspiration for what's possible for the things that I'm trying to do in organizing our folks, particularly Black women, around this issue. And that's this campaign that we are launching is a long time vision coming to fruition, right? It is.
Let's talk about it formally. Let me set it up for people, because we're learning every week, like Morgan said at the beginning. We stood in and we're standing in solidarity, and we're really trying to be like, okay, it's election year, and it's confusing, Tarana. It's confusing out there to understand, like, candidates aside, Girl Trek is a 501c3. We're not here to advocate or promote for anyone, but we are here with Black women who've called in from every part of the world. And they are like, how do and where do we show up? The issues feel confusing. How do we vote at the ballot so that we know that our stuff is on the agenda? And so that's why we have you here, because you are working on a major platform beyond Me Too, that especially in this season where everybody is, and September 17th is a major day. So I just want to uplift that. It's voter registration day. So can you just talk about your work in the context of this year's election and what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. I think, just to sort of ground the conversation, for people to understand, and for the women on this call in particular to understand what kind of power we hold, and to juxtapose that to the state of our lives, right? When I started doing this work, it's been a long, long time, and I wasn't really sure of what was possible, but I knew that we had to do something, right? In the words of Michelle Obama, right? And so a lot of the work was focused initially on making sure that survivors of sexual and gender-based violence had resources to heal, That's, when I talk about my work, I always talk about healing and action, and that healing is action. And so a lot of it was like, we need to make sure that folks know that there are resources out there, that we are speaking to survivors, they understand what healing looks like. But the other part is, in the action side is, we never talk about sexual and gender-based violence as if it's solvable, right? We operate, and it's a big royal we, most of us operate as if it's a foregone conclusion, almost like a rite of passage. It's going to happen, particularly to women. It's going to happen. It's a part of life. You either get over it, you figure out how to move forward, and that's it. But we don't think about it as something that is solvable. And we consume most of the blame and shame, right? It is made into sort of an individual issues between the two people, the person that caused the harm and the person that was harmed, and that's it. And the older I got and the smarter I got and the more people I was, in community with, I just really started to understand that that's just not true. In a country that is, first of all, bodily autonomy is a human right. And our human rights, our basic human rights, should be upheld by the institutions that are governing us. And so I'm like, if all of these things are true, why do we not lay this burden at the feet of the people who are supposed to be partly responsible? Why don't they have a role? Why aren't they standing up and talking and embracing and dealing with this issue as if this is a public health crisis, which it is, and a social justice issue, which it is? And so what I've seen in this country to work is what I know, if I don't know anything else, I know organizing. And I know that collective voices create collective action. And survivors are seen as a lot of things. And a lot of times we are trotted out in political seasons to evoke emotion, right? And we've seen it over and over and over again. You will hear survivor stories. You will hear some political folks talking about the issues, whatever, but it's always to evoke the emotion of potential voters, like fear or sympathy or guilt or anger, but rarely action. And I don't think anybody understands what it is to live in the body of a survivor but us. And so what this work I'm doing is about how do we turn all of this pain that so many of us are holding into promise, right? How do we turn it into action? How do we catalyze that and coalesce the power of all of these millions, literally millions of survivors, and make this movement exactly extend this to the full extent of the power of this movement? And that's what Survivors Vote is about. We attempted in 2020 with Me Too Voter. That was our first campaign. And, 2019 actually, but we ran into so many issues. And I think I learned from that. And when I say we, it's Me Too, my organization, Me Too International, the National Women's Law Center, and Justice for Migrant Women. And originally, the National Domestic Workers Alliance was also a partner. But what we learned is you have to kind of go back to basics. And I think y'all, I was talking to Vanessa the other day, and we had some of this conversation. You know exactly what I mean. Sometimes you have to just go back to what you know. And it's what I know is people, and I know Black women. I know us, and I know that we get things done. When you think about the electoral process and voting in this country, Black women are a powerhouse when it comes to that. I'm just going to share some statistics with y'all for a minute, if you bear with me.
Yeah, please.
16 million Black women are eligible to vote, and 67% are registered. It's one of the highest percentages of registered voters of any demographic in the country. Black women made up 17%. Remember in 2017, there was the big election in Alabama that tipped the Senate in the other direction. Black women made up 17% of the voters who cast ballots in that election, but account for less than 14% of the state's population. In 2016, when Hillary Clinton ran, 94% of Black women supported her. In 2008 and 2012, when Barack Obama was on a ticket, 96% of Black women voted for them. And 90% of Black women voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, right? So those are like stunning numbers. And we are increasingly running and winning, right? We have our first Black woman vice president and 31 Black women serving in Congress, which is the most ever, 30 in the House and 1 in the Senate. There have only been 8 Black women that have ever served in the U.S. Senate. Black women are currently 4.3% of all state legislators, compared to 2.3% in like 1999. And Black women have served as mayors in 8 of the nation's 100 most populous cities. So that's just a taste of the kind of electoral power that we have. But I want to.
Tarana, can I interject? This is Morgan. Can I interject to just say that is staggering? First of all, those statistics it is that we are so powerful, and it means that I'm wrong in my perception, because I got on this line thinking, okay, Morgan, God got my words. I was like, what is it that we're here to do? And I was like, we're here to get every single person on this line to commit to voting. And I was just like, and then I came from a deficit mindset, which is like, everybody say we got to vote more. Let's get everyone to vote more. Let's think about what that means. What would be the barriers to that? And what the facts are telling us is the exact opposite. No, Morgan, we've been out here. We've been doing this. We've been standing in the gap. We do vote. And I just want to stand corrected that, like, first of all, thank you, Black women. Thank us all that we be doing it. And then also, that's one of the things we can put, because I be embodying all of the change. You're like, okay, what we got to do to make this better, this world better? Okay, let me try to do it in my own life. And I'm saying that one we can put aside, y'all. Like, we are counting on you to, yes, show up and vote. And thank you for doing it all these years. I just want to say that. I just want to stand corrected and say that.
Well, but I'm glad you said that, right? Because it's not that Black women don't vote. We are voters. We take our civic engagement very seriously. This is about what kind of voters we are, right? This is about how we coalesce the power of that into something that is about making changes that are very specific to us. Black women are going to always be the ones to show up and save everybody. When it was in Alabama, it was, we got to save the Senate. And then again, when we had to turn Georgia blue and we had to, make sure we got Warnock elected. There's always these moments when it's like, Black women did that. Thank a Black woman, right? That we've all seen it, we've all experienced it. But I want to level set on the other side, because these are some other statistics I want to share. And these are statistics about sexual violence. I want to say that in advance in case it's activating for anybody. But
Tarana, yeah. I also, when
yeah.
You've been saying your survivor's agenda, I wanted to bring in some spaciousness here too, because I don't want people to turn down thinking that this ain't about them. I want you to consider, even if you were lucky in your life or blessed in your life to be covered and not have sexual violence in your direct life, we tell our daughters of stories. And I want you to think about your mother. I want you to think about your grandmother and your great-grandmother and the trajectories that sexual violence has put your family on, the fear that it is imbued in your family line, and all these sorts of things. And you think about Black women in America as a body politic is a body that has survived. That's that right. It is a miracle that we even walk this land, that we were brought over to exploit both sexually and in terms of our labor. And so when Tarana says a survivor's agenda, best believe that is the most expansive version of all of us. And then our sisters who are currently survivors of sexual violence, this is especially for you. So I just wanted to kind of open up the aperture a little bit for people so everyone leans in to hear what you're saying.
Yeah, let me say this. I'm so glad you interjected that, because what we know about this and what I'm about to read will underscore that. If you are not a survivor, you absolutely know one. and you probably love one and care deeply about one in your life. So this agenda is about people who have survived the violence, but also people who care deeply about ending the violence. So thank you for that. 1 in 5 Black women are survivors of rape or sexual violence in this country, which is a staggering number by itself. 35% of Black women experience some form of contact or sexual violence in their lifetime. 40 to 60% of Black women report being subjected to coercive sexual contact by the time they're 18. 17% of Black women experience sexual violence other than rape by an intimate partner. 40% of sex trafficking survivors in the U.S. are Black, and 13% of Black transgender people have reported some sort of sexual assault. 42% of adult rape victims among Black women are also victims of child sexual abuse. And in Latin America and the Caribbean, more than 25% of women will face sexual and gender-based violence in their lifetime, which I bring to the forefront because we hear a lot about immigration, and we don't often think, we're often made to think about just certain populations, but when we hear immigration, we should also hear and think of the faces of many, many Black people coming into this country who are also in this country who come from the diaspora. So these numbers, when you hear numbers like this, right? 1 in 4 Black girls in the U.S. will be sexually abused before high school graduation. For every Black woman who reports rape, at least 15 women do not report it. When you hear numbers like this in relation to our community, it is easy to understand why we only think about this as a public health crisis. And Black women are the second largest group of survivors in America. In the United States, we are only statistically outdone by Indigenous women. And Indigenous women, we know, by numbers are less than us, but have a different set of also terrible, like that's a whole other conversation, but very different set of circumstances when it comes to sexual violence. For Black women, we deal with it in our homes, we deal with it in our workplaces, we deal with it as intra-community, and extra-community. So we deal with it with law enforcement, right? And part of the issue is that it's interwoven in all of these other issues that affect our lives. So the conversations that we were having around police brutality as an issue that adversely affects Black people is very true. But while police brutality is the number one issue that is, that against law enforcement, the number one complaint against law enforcement, the number 2 is sexual violence. So if you put that up against the fact that Black people have the most adverse experiences with law enforcement in this country, who do you think is suffering at the hands of law enforcement when it comes to sexual violence? But we don't ever hear this issue wrapped around policy from our lawmakers, right? I often think about January 6th. We remember what happened January 6th, 2020, when there was supposed to be a peaceful transition of power. On January 6th, when all of those lawmakers were stuck in the Capitol, or after January 6th, when the story started coming out, one of the stories that struck me was from AOC, the Congresswoman, when she talked about, for the first time, being a survivor, that she herself had not, in her past had been a survivor, and that while this was happening and she was stuck in the Capitol, her biggest fear is that she would be sexually assaulted again. And what struck me about that, and I've talked to other Congress people who were there that day and had the women who had similar sentiments, that they really deeply feared both for their lives, but also for their bodily, their safety. And what strikes me about that is we talk a lot about power and equity when we talk about women's rights. We talk a lot about, we can just get women more power, we can just get equal. But I'm saying you had the most powerful women, arguably the most powerful women in the country on that day. And all of that power did not protect them, right? Black women are the most degreed in this country amongst our population. Our degrees are not going to protect us. Our jobs are not going to protect us. Our positions of power are not going to protect us. We have to have an agenda that we understand is wrapped around the policies, the laws, and the protections. And not only that, because we need cultural shift and other things, but this is one intervention amongst multiple interventions that we can control. You know, we often quote June Jordan, we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is it. This is it. People are not going to make this into a policy about us. We hear all of these things when people stand on the stage. We created a voter guide to help people. So when you're like listening to these politicians, there are questions that you can ask. Well, when you talk about safety, right? We always hear about gun safety, make our communities free of guns or free of gangs or free of, bad police. We have to expand the definition of safety. What does it mean to be safe in our community? When somebody is shot, particularly, think of a young person shot in our community, we rally, right? And people understand, I want to feel safe. I want my children safe in this community. And so I want to do whatever is necessary to make that happen. We need to get the guns off the street, the people who are carrying guns. We need to make this community safe. And we feel a collective responsibility about that, right? We show up at the rally, we donate, we wear the t-shirt, we post the things, because we understand that that one child, that one person that got shot or, was wounded or whatever it was, could be me, could be my child, could be my family. And there are people who are obligated to provide more safety in our community. When a child is molested, when a woman is sexually assaulted, or when a person is sexually harassed, we don't feel the same way. That's not the reaction. We don't feel a collective responsibility. We don't think, wow, this community is not safe and I am responsible for doing something for it. So part of what this agenda is about is helping to expand the definition of what community safety looks like, right? We need to use the power that we have right in our hands from in the voting polls to move our politicians forward with an agenda that's in the front of their mind that says, when I'm thinking about safety, I'm thinking about workplace safety. I'm thinking about bodily autonomy and reproductive justice. I'm thinking about health and healing. I'm thinking about sex and consent ed, so that we are raising a new generation of young people who already have these things in their mind, for whom this is second nature. That's what this mission is for. We are going to build a constituency of survivors. We need to create a political home for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. So when these politicians stand up, we can speak with one voice and say, wait a minute, we need to hear your plan for this. And we can do that. We can absolutely do that. There's when you hear numbers like this, you know that there are millions and millions of people in this country. And I'm speaking gendered in this moment because we know that this is an issue that affects everybody. It's not just women. But there are something like 165 million women in America. If 1 in 5 are going to experience sexual violence in their lifetime, that's 33 million survivors. But it's also 33 million voters. And we can coalesce that power into something that is unprecedented in this country. And that's what I plan to do.
Tarana, I'm just mesmerized by just the understanding. And also, I know you mentioned a lot of resources. So I just want to let women know, because we're getting ready to open up the lines and let a few voices in. *9 to raise your hand, to get in the line. If you have something to say, if you have a testimony, if you've been moved by the conversation, if you maybe just have a general breakthrough for the week, some status quo that you broke down, if you just want to come into the conversation, *9. And also, don't worry, we are going to share the recording of this conversation. We are going to share the link to the voter guide. We are going to share the link to Survivor's Agenda and how it's a pledge that they can take, right, Tarana?
Yes, we want people to take the pledge, yes.
Yeah, we're going to share a link to take the pledge. And we've secured the bag, as in we've secured some T-shirts from Tarana and her people. And so we're going to put it all in an email so that we could even show up in solidarity around all of the work that you're doing and what you said. And so that this conversation, because we know we have to bring people in right now, and women are out there walking, they look, look, I'm on my mile, what we doing? But y'all, we got to have this conversation. And I just want to let everybody know this is the start of the conversation, the start of our work together, Tarana, the start of the understanding of how Girl Trek can build in and get into the network that you're talking about, along with all of the other dope people that you're doing work with. Like, we want to be at that table with you so that we can be a part of this work.
Yes. Amen.
Tarana, can I ask one question for you? Thank you for that, V. Tarana, can I ask one question? So 1 million Black women are walking, talking, solving problems together, listening to this right now. You're saying 1 in 4 of those statistically is a survivor. That's 250,000 women here. What is the action? What is the one single thing? So we're going to send around the pledge, but what is not even the action, what advice would you give us when we're going into the polls? Like, what is the one policy area or issue area we should pay attention to?
Well, I can give you 4.
Okay, give us 4.
The 4 that we're looking at that we can move folks around. Workplace safety is a really big one. You know, so many of us experience harm in the places that we learn and worship and work, and we have to and we can't afford to leave those places, right? We still have to continue to exist in those spaces, and we have to do it while watching people actively not care. So we need to be moving our lawmakers around much stronger policies around sexual harassment and sexual violence in the workplace. So workplace safety is a really big one. During COVID, we did a study of how COVID-19 and sheltering in place and people who had, essential workers were affected by sexual violence during that time. And the numbers were staggering. And we know that's only exacerbated from, times outside of sheltering in place. So workplace safety is one. Another major one, and you'll hear this more than anything probably this election season, is bodily autonomy, right? And that means a lot of things. We can talk about reproductive justice. When we listen to the ways that since post-Dobbs decision, reproductive rights have changed in this country, it's rarely talked about very squarely and how it's affecting our community. And so the right to have dignity and liberation in our bodies is very much tied to bodily autonomy. So we should be listening for policies that are about the protections around that. Sex and consent education is another one. I don't see a world where we can move the needle. Like, we can create all the policies we want, we can create all the laws we want, but if we don't have a deep systemic cultural shift in this country, we can't get to a place of solving this issue. And I don't think that cultural change happens until we shift the way our children, our young people are raised to understand things like consent and boundaries and respect. So sex and consent education is another major issue that we want to push around, and we want to be inspired curiosity, right? So it's not always just a fight. We want people, a lot of people just don't know. So learn, understand, talk to your lawmakers about what their plans are, but what do they know? And I'll say the last one is health and healing. We talk a lot about prevention, which we should. We don't talk very much about what healing, or what we call in Me Too post-traumatic growth, right? What is owed to survivors? When you hear the numbers, like there are 33 million survivors of sexual and gender-based violence that are just women just from women in this country. That's so many people I call the walking wounded, right? We are just walking around holding these wounds and thinking it is our sole responsibility to deal with them, and it's not. The average survivor will spend, there's a study that came out that said the average survivor will spend $110,000 to $133,000 in their lifetime trying to heal. And every time I hear that, I think,
whoa,
part that they don't add to that is if they can afford it.
yes,
Those
yes,
people have, right? The people who have the jobs and the insurance and the wraparound services. So health and healing is about care. Care is a big movement in this country, and our part in care is around what does self-care look like? Activated self-care, right? We want, Girl Trek is deeply about health and healing and self-care. But what does it mean when we have policies? We don't think that we can create policies around care. One big one is, paid leave. Paid leave, we often hear paid leave in reference to parents, and paid leave after, they give birth to children or are caring for children. But the other part of the legislation in paid leave is that survivors of sexual and gender-based violence having 6 to 12 weeks paid time off after experiencing that violence.
Yes.
Right? That would be incredible. So those are some of the issues that when we're listening to people who are making promises and talking about changing our lives and being lawmakers and policy setters, these are some of the issue areas that we want to be curious about, that we want to be advocating around and pushing around, for sure.
Thank you so much.
There's several more. I can start with those 4.
And Tarana, thank you so much, because I'm a practical woman, and I was just like trying to imagine myself, okay, that black velvet like curtain. All right, you open it in the voting booth. You open it up, you walk up in there, and it'd be all them little words I can't half see, and I just be like, okay, what am I looking for? Who am I? And so you're a good teacher. So what I heard you say is workplace, like the workplace policy and how your job protects you is number one. Is the kind of how do the candidates stack up? What are their positions on how your job is protecting you, right? Mm-hmm. Including paid leave if you are a survivor, just like parental leave. So that's the first one I heard. The second one I heard is bodily autonomy. So like what does your candidate say about how you own your own body, how your own body is your own right, and like what does your candidate say about that? And also in all facets of life, like that your body, that you are an autonomous and free Black woman, and that you can make decisions for your bodies. Number 2, ooh, girl, give this the pop quiz. Number 3 is education. Education. How are we talking about? How are we teaching our children? How are our school systems aligned with creating safety for all of us, for our children, for our boys and our girls, and transgender children? How are our schools complicit and compliant with teaching policy, or what is the policy that requires our kids to learn and the culture to shift? I love that one. And the 4th one was healing. Ooh, how can I forget that one? Ooh, I loved what you said, post-traumatic growth. Like if you can't afford to heal, how are we being protected as a civilization? How are we protecting the least among us, so people who have been victimized? How are we protecting one another and providing space to heal from trauma? Woo. Then you add on poverty alleviation on top of that. I mean, I did good, didn't I? You're a good teacher.
That was good. That was good. That was a good recap.
All right, let's open up the lines. If you've broken through the status quo.
Sis. Thank you for walking with us. Thank you for talking with us. We're going to open up the lines and let some women come in and share some voices before we close out, but we appreciate you so much.
Should I stay on? If you want to stay on, you can stay on. You can stay on, because people might have questions directly for you. Star 9 to raise your hand. You can give a shout. You might have had a testimony, had a good walk, good breakthrough. You broke through the status quo. You got something to say. You might just got something to say. You might just want to say hi.
Good morning, sis. You're on live.
Good morning. My name is Angela White. I'm out here in Atlanta, Georgia, and I've invited a lot of my sisters to join this morning. So sisters, good morning. And I wanted to let everybody know that this long meeting today is not normal, but it's been inspiring to me. And I have a lot of sisters who are loved by me and cousins who have walked this journey that you've talked about. And so I think it touches us all in some kind of way. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was when we said that Black women, when we go out to vote, I just want to reiterate, we make a difference. That I want to give shout out to my white sisters too, who go out and vote. But our vote, the reason why they keep talking about it is because when we layer our vote with all our sisters, we make a difference. Please vote. Thank you.
Angela said, y'all, the walk is usually 30 minutes. And she's telling all her friends and family who's walking wherever. She's like, I know we don't walk for an hour today, but y'all, we walk 30 minutes to radical self-care. But we are also on the liberation line, because to walk, talk, and solve problems together sometimes means we got to be on the road to freedom a little bit longer. And I was just telling somebody this yesterday, and Morgan and I started this movement by asking women, could you walk like Harriet Tubman did on her first journey, 90 miles to save your own life? And if you can't, you got to get your weight up. So just consider this getting your weight up. Thank you so much, Angela. We got another caller we're going to bring in there, another walker. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Rochelle Brandon, and I'm a gynecologist.
Rochelle, you're a little far away. Put your mouth right up to the phone so we can hear you, or come off speaker.
Okay, sounds good. I'm
better.
Rochelle Brandon. Yes. I'm a gynecologist in Charlotte, North Carolina, and this subject today is something I know a lot about because I've often said I think about 30% of my African American women in my practice have been sexually assaulted, molested in their lifetime. And it was so bad that I actually went to counseling, just because I had such a volume of people who had that experience. And most of them had not told anybody, or who had not pressed any charges. And most of them, it was a family member or somebody that they knew, type of thing. It is so bad. I have a couple of people who, one of their rules about their children, their girl children, is that they're not to be left alone with any man at any time. So other than their father. And when they have babysitters or family members, they tell them that's the rule. And the children grew up knowing that, that's the rule. And and they were to call her if they ever found themselves in a situation where that happened, just to protect them. So I think another issue is safe child care for women, for women's children. Because a lot of times you've got to go to work and you don't have good child care, and you leave them with, a cousin, an uncle, a stepfather, and that type of thing, or a teenager, and things happen, type of thing. So it is very common, and I agree about it needs to be thought of as a healthcare issue and a mental health issue. Because there are a lot of women who have chronic pelvic pain, dissociative disorders, problems with relationships. And when I talk to my patients and all of this is coming out, I always ask all my patients if they've ever been abused, sexually molested, raped, assaulted, or anything like that. And I don't think other physicians do, because it unlocks a big box of things that people need to process and go through. And a lot of physicians aren't willing to give that time. But I have lists of mental health professionals, pelvic therapy, and I tell them, this is going to unlock a lot of things, but it needs to be processed. And this is my thing, is that I don't want you holding on to this to your last breath on earth. The oldest patient I had who told me about her assault was in her 80s, and she hadn't told anybody. And the perpetrator was long dead, and she was still afraid. And I, got her into therapy and said, we need to work on this healing after the trauma. And I've said to colleagues, I said, there are women who have undergone so much trauma that they're like war victims.
That's right.
And you need to be aware of that, and particularly if you're doing pelvic exams and intimate exams and surgeries and things like that. It brings up a lot. And so that was part of my career and findings as a practicing African-American woman gynecologist. And so I think that this is an important thing to make it a healthcare issue, a community issue, a safety issue type of thing. So thank you very much for doing this. I think that this is so needed and huge. And I agree with the statistics wholeheartedly as a physician that the statistics are dead on about what's going on.
Tarana, you just got verified from the community. I just want you to know, Sister Doctor, thank you so much for that calling in. It was powerful. And I want to say this. There are so many women who call on this line and who consider Vanessa and I like your family and your crew, and now Tarana and every single person that we've spoken to. And you are out walking, and this might be the first time that you are moving your body and that you feel safe enough to even remember things that have happened to you. And I just want to ask you, Tarana, if one of my sisters is out here and she is, feeling something for the first time, bubbling up in her spirit, feeling some trauma, remembering something, what care can we give her? Do you have like recommendations of someone she can call, of a website she can go to, of a therapist? Like, what would you tell her?
Listen, you are such a good lead-in with these questions. I would say that, one of the priorities for me after Me Too went viral was I was worried sick about the number of people who would be surfacing trauma that they hadn't thought about, hadn't dealt with, and how do we reach them? And while there are, 800 numbers and things like that exist, one, that's not often the route folks want to take. Two, sometimes in those instances, you just don't know who you're going to encounter. So it took us almost 4 years, but we've created in our organization something called Survivor Sanctuary, because I wanted a space for survivors that, one, felt like sanctuary, but that was culturally competent and relevant. We don't often find ourselves. So the two resources I would give to folks who are survivors or who know survivors, or even if you're not, right, but are what you described, Morgan. Survivor Sanctuary is the website. It is a self-guided virtual space for survivors where you can craft your own healing journey. So you watch the videos you want, you put them in your own, you create a what do you call it? When you sign up for something, like you create your own like identity on there, and then you curate what you need and you come back to it as often as you want to. We've also put together a database that is like a collection of resources for survivors around the country that are not just traditional. So you can search by the way our filtering works is something that has never been created. It's our healing resource library. And so basically, if you can say something like, I am Black and a veteran, and I survived, domestic abuse or sexual harassment. You can filter according to your particular needs in our healing resource library and find resources in your community or national resources that speak to your specific needs. So those are the two offerings I would.
Where is that healing resource? Is that on Survivor Sanctuary?
No, that's Me Too. So that's on our Me Too website, MeTooMovement.org. Yeah. So and it's MeTooMVMT.org.
MeTooMVMT.org. There's a healing resource library, and then Survivor Sanctuary. Is it .org or .com?
That's also, you can get to it from the website. So, but it is.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, okay, perfect. So it all comes from there, the Survivor Sanctuary, where you can create your own journey and watch everything you need. And, you know, self-care resonates with Black women for all the reasons you just said, because we don't want to tell everybody our business all the time, but sometimes you need help, y'all. You need help, and sometimes we need help. So thank you for those resources. And we always have our care team at Girl Trek led by the incredible Carla Harris. So any info at girltrek.org, you go directly into our care system, so you can reach out that way too. So we love y'all so much. Vanessa, do you want to take Vanessa, you're taking the lead here. What are we doing?
I know. Look, I feel like we should let one more caller in. I don't know. Spirit is just telling me that. I know we run a little bit over, but I say let's bring in one more voice and then we will close out. So Tyrene, if you could cue us up another woman. And you could tell us your name and where you're calling from, even just the breadth and depth of the movement, and understanding that we had our first sis who called in from Atlanta. We had another sis who was calling in from the Carolinas. We come from all different walks of life. There's hardly any spaces intergenerational across economic spectrums, across regions, that brings Black women together in this way. So I'm just grateful for it. Tyrene says we have our last caller on. Good morning, sis. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. I don't want to tell you my name, and you'll understand why when I get done talking. I'm an educator, and we received a student at our school, and we got her records. And in her records, it says that her mother, now deceased, was a sex worker, and she sold her daughter to whoever. And this child is on different types of medications, and she's tried to commit suicide twice, and they even have her on birth control, and she's in the 6th grade. So when I was listening to what Tarana was saying, it just overwhelmed me, because when she came to our school, the first thing we thought was, how do we keep other children safe? Because she has demonstrated a history of some predatory behavior with younger children. And then I got mad because we began making her the one who was wrong in it, because she wasn't. She was a victim. And in all of the reading that we did and the records that they gave us, there was not one mention of her having therapy, of any type of resources provided to her. And as I listened to the building leader create this safety plan to keep the other children in the building safe from this predator, as she called her, I got mad. And I said, no, yes, we need to keep everyone safe. But next, we need to give her a plan, because she needs support. What resources can we pull in? Who do we know in our community that can come? She needs these services. So we met with her dad, who was in complete denial. Again, mom is deceased. But it just broke my heart that this 10-year-old, soon to be 11, has lived all of this experience. And the first thought of us as a school, which should be some sense of a safety net, was to make her, to blame her for what had happened to her. I'm sorry, I'm walking. And so I just wanted to say thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for holding space for it. I don't care if it took 2 hours, because I said I was gonna walk the whole time that you talked. But yeah, so I'm gonna go to those resources. I'm going to advocate for her, because at the beginning, the middle, and the end, the only thing that the building leaders were concerned about was, how do we keep other children safe from her, instead of how do we help her to heal from this trauma that could impact her for the rest of her life. That's all I had to say. And that's the reason I didn't want to share my name. I don't want to put people's business out like that, but it broke my heart.
Bless
Thank you.
Sharon.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, T.
Listen, it reminds me so much. I started this work with young people, and we often, the conversation veers away from them so much. And when Me Too blew up and became this global phenomenon, it felt like Black girls were being left behind and being forgotten. And so I try to invoke the name, the spirit, the agency, of Black girls and Black girlhood all the time, because it needs to be fiercely protected. And I, like this sister who called in, so many instances of the young people, because when I would go into schools, I would say, to bring my program, like the way I would sell it is say, hey, give me all the girls you have that have been in SAP, what they call SAP was like an in-school detention program. Give me all the girls who you're about to expel. Give me all the girls who are constantly in detention. Give me all your quote unquote problem children. Because what I know is that children don't wake up with trauma. They don't wake up and want to be disruptors. Something has happened to them. And when we see that in Black girls, we often do exactly what this caller just said. We dismiss it, right? We make the Black child, the girl, the problem, and we don't investigate and interrogate what happened to you. How did you get here? These are still babies and children. And I'm sitting here trying to hold back tears because I met a child. We were out in a community in Philadelphia last weekend. And we, doing this work about the campaign and organizing. And I met a child, a 16-year-old, who was currently being trafficked, homeless child, with a group of, she was with a group of a woman who runs a shelter for homeless children. And the woman brought her to meet me because when I was speaking, she was crying. This baby had been trafficked since 12. And she was now 16 and said it was just what she knew, right? At 16. This is just what she knew. It's her way of life. So I spent the last week trying to find resources for her, trying to find, and it's like running into a brick wall because it just doesn't exist for our children. They will throw us away and forget about us and label us and then talk about how the numbers are growing in prison. There's something called the sexual abuse to prison pipeline. It's really real. So I just appreciate the caller calling in and bringing in a conversation about the youngest and most vulnerable among us. There was a song I used to sing when I was a young organizer called "Who Will Speak for the Children," and I think about it all the time because we are not voiceless. I hate when people say, "Oh, somebody gave you a voice." We're not voiceless. People just can't ever hear the frequency that we're speaking on. But young people, children, oftentimes their voices are drowned out. And so we have to be there to amplify their voices. So I just deeply appreciate that sister who called in. And it just grounds me and is a reminder always and why I do this work and why we have to do it collectively, because don't nobody care about us like us.
Tarana, I love that as a sentiment. Yeah, I was thinking Vanessa leads our storytelling team, and certainly as far as like the agenda and our support on that side. But as I was listening to the educator, I was thinking, well, Girl Trek. I think the Girl Trek story. For those of you out there who don't, Girl Trek started in a classroom by taking girls hiking. And I remember the principal of the school that I was working in said, well, you're mentoring on the trail. And I was like, yeah, write it up like that. I was like, that's exactly what we're doing. That sounds great. But we need to be, right? And so like, even as we think about Tarana, the work, the opportunity that we have together, thinking about, you have 1 million Black women who are out walking and getting embodied again and getting fresh air and sunlight. And what if we created an opportunity, just like the opportunity you just explained, where you're going into detention, you get the kids who are, quote unquote disruptive, and they're disrupting trauma. They're like, listen, I have to raise my voice. And if we were walking with these children that we love the most, you know what I mean? And figuring out how and training some of our volunteers to be active listeners, to particularly those who have survived sexual violence themselves, of really walking with young girls and helping them think through their pathway to healing. I really love this idea, and I lead the street team, so let's do that. Let's do it, Tarana.
I feel a deeper collaboration coming on. We
can't stop collaboration. Yes, dear, I do too. Vanessa, can I end with a prayer? Do you mind?
Yeah, I do not mind.
Okay, I saw
that was the song. Yeah.
Yeah, that the first sister who came on said Black women are voting, and we have to bring our sisters along who are not Black women. And Tarana, I was delighted when you did a book with Brene Brown, who is an ally and a white woman, about shame. And I was delighted. I was proud of you, and I was delighted because you understand the complexity of this work that we have to do, healing even with our sisters across other races. And I was listening to Marianne Williamson, Vanessa, our favorite book last night. I was listening to it with my mama because we're healing the law of divine conversation. And she said this really beautiful prayer. She was like, "Dear God, let me see things differently." And then that was it. She was like, "Amen." I was like, "Ooh, that's so beautiful." And then I was looking for prayers this morning, and I found this one, and I thought maybe I would end with this prayer. It's called A New Day by Marianne Williamson. Dear God, thank you for this new day. It's beautiful and it's light. Thank you for my chance to begin again. Free me from the limitations of yesterday. Today, may I be reborn. May I become fully a reflection of your radiance. Give me strength and compassion and courage and wisdom. Show me the light in myself and others. May I recognize the good that is available everywhere. May I be this day an instrument of love and healing. Lead me into gentle pastures. Give me the deep peace that I might serve you most deeply. Amen.
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 Amen. Yeah. Where's that from?
Ooh, it's called A New Day. I think it might be a book of the same title. I'm not sure. Don't give me the lie.
I can find it.
Y'all, this man is riding this little ass motorcycle by me. Y'all better need celebrity on this thing. God was like sitting in the man with the little ass motorcycle. So I appreciate y'all. I love you so much, Tarana.
Yes.
Vanessa, I love you so much. And all of the callers out there, I want you to know that we love you. I want you to know that you are not alone. I want you to know that you can make it today and tomorrow. And I want you to know that if you feel like you can't, you can call us. You can email us, info@girltrek.org. I want you to know that ain't nothing your fault. I want you to know that that this is a brand new day and a day to define yourself for yourself, and we are with you. And all of y'all, when we go into the polls, we're going to remember these issues. We're going to remember these issues. So we love y'all. Vanessa, what song you got? What song you got?
Look, did you want to say something, Tarana, before we close out?
Oh, but thank you and love y'all back. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We're going to close out with Holy by, I know her name, Jamelia Woods. Yes, Holy by Jamelia. I was going to close out with Gil Scott-Heron, but this conversation has shifted the atmosphere, so I've changed. And Tyrene is going to cue up some Jamelia Woods just to close us out, y'all. Enjoy the rest of your walk. We will be back here next Saturday, same time, same place. Please invite a friend, invite a sister. Understand the power of what we are doing. Understand the power of our collective work together. And we will see you back here next week.